Hi, everyone. Welcome to today's section with HYCU, talking about selecting the right SaaS backup. My name is Andy Fernandez. I'm the Director of Product Management at HYCU. And as we focus the conversation today, it's going to be a little bit different than traditional IT and DevOps conversation. It's always been focused on cloud infrastructure, it's focused on on-prem infrastructure, vSphere environments, but we're really going to focus on what's really changed and evolved in the last couple of years and why that matters to you, why that matters to backup and the need to protect not just the one application you're thinking about right now, but everything else in your data estate as well. If you have any questions, please use the chat. We'll make sure to answer it, and I will personally follow up with you if we don't have enough time for that. But I want to thank you all for your time, and let's get started. So let's go back a couple of years. Let's go back 10 years and really understand where it all started. 10 years ago, when we were looking at organizations, they were running everything on-prem. You had all of your applications, your infrastructure, everything was managed on-prem. So your applications, your networking, everything was in your castle, in your domain, in your control. IT had full control of every single application that was used across the entire organization, from sales to HR, you name it. But then what we started to see was one, tier one critical applications were still hosted on-prem. That wasn't going away. But we started to see edge cases within the cloud. We started to see organizations adopt it for backup, being able to use it for cheaper and deeper storage. And then maybe some novel cases of modern applications as well. And then you saw the first few organizations actually moving from a server or a data center deployment of their departmental SaaS to an actual, or their departmental applications to an actual SaaS. But still, at this point, everything was managed by IT. Everything that was critical, that was tier one to the organization, was running on prem. Let's go today. Well, there's still an on prem footprint. We know that that's still a part of the majority of organizations that have been in existence for more than 10 years. But we've also started to see modernization in the cloud. Those organizations that lifted and shifted, or maybe they even failed over to the cloud, started to see the benefits, the scale, the decoupled services that they can unlock, and started to modernize. But when you modernize these applications, you're dealing with dozens of services that make up that application. And a lot of that is not managed by IT, it's managed by DevOps, it's managed by SREs, by cloud engineers. And that's just within engineering. But what about departmental applications that used to be hosted on-prem? Well, anyone with a credit card now can go and purchase it and can start running a mission critical application within the budget of their organization, completely outside of IT. So what we're dealing with here is a completely disparate environment. We're dealing with an estate that not only is still a challenge for IT to manage, but a lot of it sits outside of IT, but it's still critical information. It's still the same type of applications that used to be hosted on-prem. Now they live in separate walled gardens. But why does that actually matter? Isn't the whole point of SaaS that I can just pay a monthly fee, use a service, and never have to worry about patching again? In a way, yes, but you have to think about SaaS as a parking garage. When you're parking your car in your garage, you are paying the garage a service. I would like to park my car and make sure the lights are on and I can leave and exit the building. That's what they're there. That's what they're meant to do. But what happens if you leave your window open? What happens if somebody steals your laptop because you made a mistake, you left your door unlocked, or somebody scratches your door, maybe even somebody steals your car? The point is, the garage will never take responsibility for that. That is on you as the owner of the car to protect your belongings and the car itself. SaaS is the same thing. They own the service. They're responsible for the system, that you can use the system, that it's available for you to use it. But if you corrupt, if you delete, somebody else corrupts or encrypts your data, it's on you to have to protect it. It's on you to have to recover. Now, this is something that we've been busting these myths now at Haiku for a very long time because we have these conversations with customers and they understand that M365 is something that they need to back up. And then they start to realize that M365 is just one of the applications that you're running as a SaaS. The majority of other departmental applications are also running as a SaaS. And what that means is that they all follow the same shared responsibility model, which is we own the system, we're responsible for the system, but your data is on you. Whether that's Okta, whether that's Atlassian, whether that's Salesforce, every organization follows the same model. There's different visuals, different color fonts, but it's the same thing. It's you are responsible for your data if somebody deletes it, corrupts it, encrypts it, if you're attacked. The point here being is it's very important to understand your data state and to be able to go and actually start protecting these applications because this is a massive area where organizations are extremely vulnerable. And why is it that they're vulnerable? Well, the same threats to your data that you had on-prem are still the same threats to your data that you had in the cloud. The only difference is you actually have less data protection options in SaaS than you do on-prem. The entire on-prem world has dozens of backup vendors. They're all great and they do very incredible things with VMware, with Nutanix, with file shares. But not that many people are helping you to protect your SaaS applications. And why should you protect them? Well, the first one is something that's going to plague organizations as long as humans use it. That's data loss, deletion, accidental deletions, or maybe not so accidental deletions, logical failures, corruptions, these type of things. When you look at the data, 49% of organizations who use these tools will experience some form of data loss. Then we get into more nefarious activity, and that's ransomware. If you were a hacker, if you were a cyber criminal syndicate, who would you go after? Would you go after the organizations with extremely protected on-prem deployments? Or would you go after the ones where maybe it's a little bit of a gray area as to who's responsible? Maybe it's HR managing an app or finance, and they're not really worried about cybersecurity. It's an easy target. So we're seeing SaaS become the number one target for ransomware attacks, and unfortunately, they have a 52% success rate. And then ultimately too, if you're in a healthcare organization, financial services, legal, you name it, there are so many compliance requirements that you have that still apply to SaaS. Data governance, data residency, data retention, even keeping the 321 rule and having offsite copies. These are still requirements. These are still things that you have to think about when it comes to SaaS applications. But what I want to really double click on here is the fact that ransomware attacks will only continue to increase in severity. What I'm showing you here is the interface of Worm GPT. We all know about OpenAI, we know about Bard, we know about Gemini, and all these amazing things that are happening. And the scale, the maturity, the intelligence that's all at our fingertips to do good things, to build things. But those same technologies have been available to evil people who have the ability and the technical capacity to create nefarious versions of this. So with Worm GPT, with Evil GPT, and other iterations that we're starting to see, organizations can produce extremely sophisticated attacks just prompting, just being able to prompt an attack. What does this mean? Well, it goes from having to spend months building the perfect attack, finding your victims, crafting emails, crafting the actual malware scripts that you need as well, to being able to simply prompt these attacks. This is only going to increase the volume, but it's also going to increase the quality of these attacks. So the most important thing you can do in your organization is secure your data estate. And as we've seen, it's not just about prevention, because we know that attacks will happen, they will get through. It's also about making sure that you have backup and recovery, business continuity in place as part of your cybersecurity strategy as well. So, what does that actually mean? Well, one, you should still invest in an SSO provider. You should still have MFA at minimum enabled in your organization and follow all of the best practices within the NIST cybersecurity framework. But you also need to make sure that you have your data recoverable in case of an attack, in case of a deletion, or even from a compliance perspective, right? It's not just about ransomware. The majority of data loss events are actually from people simply making mistakes. So, what are the recommendations that we provide on how to choose a SaaS backup platform? Here's the checklist that we provide. The first thing you need to understand is you're probably thinking about one SaaS right now. Oh, I need to protect my Salesforce. I need to protect my M365 or ServiceNow or something like that. But you have so much more SaaS applications, so many more SaaS applications than you think, and a much more mature cloud footprint than maybe your organization understands. So first of all, you need to understand what you need to protect just beyond a single platform. Then you have to make sure that what you're doing and when you're selecting a service, it's not about simply exporting data. Anybody can do that. That's easy. It's can you recover? Do you have granular recovery as an option? That is table stakes. That is at a minimum something you need in your organization. And another overlooked part, but very important, is you need to make sure that the copies are in your possession. that it's your storage, that if something bad does happen, that you can recover yourself from your storage. This has residency implications, governance implications, but you should always, always, always keep your backups in your control as well. But you also want to make sure that you're not simply selecting a point solution out there for one specific SaaS. Oh, I would like to protect my Jira. Let me use this specific Jira tool. Oh, for Okta, let's use this Okta tool. For M365, let's use this M365 tool. No, because you will end up with dozens of backup tools. And that alone already is a massive threat to your organization. You want consolidation, you want unification, you want to protect everything using a platform without sacrificing recovery options as well. And you cannot forget about your cloud services. For example, what if somebody deletes a role in IAM or your states in Terraform or a key rotation in a key management service in AWS or in Azure? What happens then? You have to make sure that you protect those services as well and that multiple people in your organization have the access control available to go not only back up and recover data themselves. And most important is once you've identified your footprint, and you started protecting these applications, you need an easy way to understand where they are, how they're being protected, and what is their protection status. These are the critical areas that you have to take a look at when you're selecting a SaaS platform. And if you email us or you let us know in the chat, we'll send you this checklist ourselves. We have a full option that goes even deeper into the world of SSO providers and how to protect those configurations as well. Now, what I want to spend the next few minutes on is actually just showing you how Haiku is able to do this. But a little bit about us. And a lot of folks say this, but we really deliver this. And we're the first and only data protection platform. It's actually built to scale to protect the world's thousands of applications. So it's not only about protecting your VMware, your Nutanix, your on-prem infrastructure, but your cloud infrastructure, your cloud services, and dozens of SaaS applications as well. Maybe in another day, we can even dive into how we are able to accomplish this because it's a pretty fascinating technology. But our point is, it's data is everywhere. It should be protected everywhere, and that's what Haiku is able to do. We have industry-leading customer support with an NPS of over 90, and this number is actually already inaccurate. I have nearly 4,000 customers globally, organizations trusting Haiku with their crown jewels. But with that being said, let me show you how immediately with Haiku you can expose the total SaaS applications in your state and actually go and start isolating them and protecting them and even unlocking granular restore, whether it's a cloud service or a SaaS application. Let me show you. Now, as we mentioned in the checklist, it's very important for you to understand what you're currently using in your organization. You cannot protect what you don't know is going on in the organization. So the first thing that I'm going to show you here is within my Haiku account, show you how you're able to discover all of these services. How with Haiku, you can leverage your SSO provider, whether it's Okta or Azure AD, to start discovering those services. What does that actually do? Well, you add your API token, and Haiku will crawl through your directory and start associating all of the SaaS applications, the cloud services that we find and show you from the company level all the way to departments, and then expose specific applications that don't have backup and recovery. What do we mean by that? Well, you can hover over a specific application and then identify the fact that it doesn't have a self-service recovery. Hey, if somebody deletes your videos in Zoom, did you know that you can't get them back? Did you know that you don't have any way to schedule backup policies of this? And there's no automated way to actually store this somewhere in a compliant setting. Especially think about a healthcare or financial services organization. So the whole point here with our graph, and this is a free service for everybody, by the way, attending. This is something you can simply create an account and use yourself, is showing you the drastic estate. And I promise you, everyone on this call, as long as you're not in the federal government, you have more SaaS applications than you think. There's countless of times that we sit down with CISOs and we ask them, Mr. and Mrs. CISO, how many applications do you think you're using? They tell us three or four. By the end of the conversation, after doing some digging, we always find at least 10 times more of those applications and cloud services. So the point here is you need to be able to discover what your estate is so that you can effectively protect it. But then, okay, you decide that you actually want to start protecting. Well, with Haiku, Due to our development platform, due to the way that we scale, we have 50 integrations. 50 integrations, all types of services from cloud infrastructure to SaaS, things like AWS Cloud Formations, IAM, Asana, Jira, Okta, ClickUp. It doesn't matter with Haiku, we're able to continuously grow the amount of integrations that we have. Every month, we're adding new things. Just in the next month, we're going to be adding GitHub, DocuSign, Monday.com. Every single month, more and more critical applications are added to our marketplace. What do you actually do from this? Well, you simply select what you want to protect. You add an API token or the source or your account ID, and then we'll automatically discover the instances that belong to that. Now, why does this matter? Well, it means you can assign a backup policy in essentially one click. And we have these prepackaged policies that where we observe our customers using, whether it's backing data up every day or every 4 hours. It really depends on the type of application, the criticality. But if you want something a little bit more custom to your organization, within seconds, you can also just create a backup policy. And you could say, hey, for Okta or for Jira or Asana or Salesforce, I want to take a backup every hour or I want to do it every day. It doesn't matter. You get to decide your backup frequency and then you get to decide your retention as well. Now, backup is easy. Exporting data, snapshots, these are easy things. The hard part is actually going back and restoring that information. So let's go to Okta, and let's say that somebody has deleted specific roles or admin roles or even breached Okta. How do you handle this with Haiku? Well, you can go specific to specific entities and restore that yourself, whether it's UI schema, policies, brands, or even that specific admin role that you were thinking about. You're able to restore data to a safe point in time. And that applies to all of our integrations, regardless of the data structure. It could be files, it could be objects, it could be functions, it could be configurations. With Haiku, you're able to restore the needle instead of having to find the needle through the entire haystack. You have the ability to restore things extremely easy, cataloged, and searchable. Now, where does all the data go? Where do these backups go? That's a very important component too. Well, we don't store your backups. When you think SaaS backup, you always assume somebody's storing the backups for you. But our critical mission here is to give you a copy of your data outside of the SaaS, outside of the cloud. The 321 rule is still a critical requirement in organizations. And with Haiku, you simply add the target and you define, well, I want to use Amazon S3 or Google Cloud or an S3 compatible storage like a Wasabi. You simply add that, you connect your account ID, and all of a sudden you can point all of your backups to that storage. That is off-site backup. And guess what? You can even make that completely immutable. So if you are extremely concerned about a ransomware attack, you now have immutable copies of your SaaS data as well. Now, the last thing that I'll mention, and there's so much that we can show you the value here, but what I'll mention is that there are a lot of SaaS applications. There's a lot of cloud services. Keeping track of that can be a challenge. And that's why with our graph, not only are we showing you visually the exposure that you have, the total amount of SaaS, the ones that are unprotected, but we can also start helping you identify those that from a management perspective. So you can go in and say, look, as a company, here's our protection level. Here's our compliance level. As a department, here is our, let's go to DevOps, for example. Here's how many application or policies are in place. Are we compliant? And even look at the specific SaaS applications. So you're able to truly manage your data estate in one place, knowing if you can recover data, knowing if it's protected, knowing if it's backed up somewhere in your control. So with that, one thing that I want to mention is that you're able to use this for free. You can create a Haiku account and you're able to simply enable our graph for free if you'd like to do so. Now, as we went through the demo, that's just a small sample of what Haiku is able to do to help you recover your data, to recover to a point in time that is safe, that is effective, so that you can minimize the risk of data loss from misconfiguration, deletion, or a cyber event. These are critical areas to think about. And what's important too is that you're not choosing a solution that is just meant for one application. You're choosing a platform that doesn't sacrifice granularity, that doesn't sacrifice native coverage, native integration, but also gives you the broadest set of applications to be covered. And so with Haiku, we've already celebrated our 50th integration. But every month we continue to add more and more and more, depending on your needs, depending on what your organization needs to protect. And you can check this out when you create an account today. So if you want to get started, and we'll continue answering questions in the chat, you can register for free. The link is in the chat as well, but you can register for free. And by the way, ask for a copy of the SaaS Resilience Checklist. In this checklist, not only do we cover what we saw today around SaaS backup, but we go into much more depth around your SSO provider configurations, the settings, how are you protecting that type of data as well. So with that, I want to thank you all for your time. I want to make sure I address any questions. And I want to thank you, and I hope you have a great day. Cheers.